good to have you here. Some guests. Well, there's two people here. Well, they left. There's two people in the studio. I am always delighted to be around them. We have our Ronald McDonald House radiothon coming up in a couple of Fridays on October 4th. So Chad and Wendy from Ronald McDonald House here in Toledo are here to, well, Chad's here to talk about it. Wendy is here to make sure he says all the right things. It is one of my favorite days of the year. It's one of those heavy lifting and long days, but I like it a lot. As someone who long ago was a part of the Children's Miracle Network radiothon, actually a couple of different times. I would air quotes specialize in making these song montages, taking a song like Sarah McLachlan, Angel, DHT, Listen to Your Heart, these very somber songs. And in a lot of cases, those stories had bad outcomes. Those kids did not make it, even through all the treatment that they got and all the help from the Children's Miracle Network Hospital. In whatever case, I made these sad songs to hopefully stimulate some donations to CMN. Ronald McDonald House Radiothon is very different in tone from that. All these stories from these families that we're going to have on October 4th on both Q105 and 93.5 WRQM, they have happy outcomes. These families, these moms, dads, are delighted to come from wherever they live to hang out at the Ronald McDonald House, be on the radio, talk about their stories, why you should donate, and hope that you never need the Ronald McDonald House. But it is a great day of storytelling, phenomenal people, and a gem that we have here in our community. We're so fortunate to have a Ronald McDonald House. And again, like so many things, I wish we wouldn't have a cancer walk. I wish we wouldn't have a heart walk. I wish we wouldn't need the Ronald McDonald House. But that's just not a reality. So it's good to have something like that here. Let's dive in now with Chad Bringman and Wendy Bejeje. I hope I got Wendy's last name right. So we can give you a bit of a preview of our October 4th radiothon with the Ronald McDonald House. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
Thanks for taking a couple of minutes.
Absolutely.
Or many of them. Are we ready for Radiothon this year?
We are ready, yeah.
Before we dive into what the Ronald McDonald House is and Radiothon and all that stuff, let's start, I guess, in the present. I had messaged you a couple of weeks ago. Can we talk about that a little bit?
I think so.
Okay, good. So I think many of us heard about the horrific turnpike accident a handful of Fridays ago, and just deadly, dangerous. It disrupted traffic in many places all day long. And then I'm reading the story. Actually, I read that story that day, and I read that a couple of dogs had gotten away. Mm-hmm. So right then and there, I stopped reading because I don't want to read about dogs and whatever could possibly happen to them. A week later, I read that both dogs had been found. One of the dogs had a broken leg. It had to be amputated, but the dogs were all good and taken care of. But the family, and reading through the injuries they went through, I guess they're lucky it wasn't much worse, but they sound kind of really beaten up, and they wound up with you at Ronald McDonald House. Tell me about it.
Yeah, they did. And unfortunately, we do see those stories, on occasion. We're there for families that have sick or injured kids, just so that they can be close to access to care, right? So a nearby hospital, et cetera. In our case, this was ProMedica Children's Hospital. And, our staff's job is really to just try to ease as much of the burden of everything else so that they can zero in and focus on that child getting better.
How did that family wind up? Did they just wind up at Toledo Hospital, and you guys being right there in the shadow is how they were able to hang out with you until things got a little bit better?
Yeah, the clinical folks do such a good job of really working with us and helping people understand what RMHC is all about, get them connected with our team and our staff, and just kind of works through the system. And obviously, a lot of times when people hear about it the first time, they're not real sure that this is something they want to do just because they've heard of us before, but they really want to stay close. But it is a big, stress reliever for those, especially when they get into day 2 and day 3, et cetera. It's exhausting for those families. So to have a place to rest, a place to eat, and not have to worry about anything. And because of the generosity of the community, it doesn't cost them anything to stay with us.
Do you ever have situations like this family? And I think if I have their travels right, they were from Maine. They went to go camp in Wisconsin. rain hit, so they began to come home, and then that's when they got in the accident. Yeah. That's got to be one of the more bizarre, outlandish stories that I'm sure you're happy to help with. But usually it's for kids, not necessarily the whole family to recover.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people think of us from a mission perspective around a building and around the Ronald McDonald House, and that's absolutely appropriate. But truly, our mission is focused on getting people access to care, and more specifically, family-centered care. And this is a good example where the family all being together is a critical piece for them moving forward.
Last question about this particular family, and they're all back home healing. The dogs got taken back there with them. There was some fundraising to get those dogs back home, so as happy an ending as can be in a terrible situation. Were they aware of something like the Ronald McDonald House as they were going to go through their healing process, or did they kind of expect to be sleeping wherever they were, not knowing that right in the shadow, a hotel-like environment where they could heal up before they go home? Yeah,
it's hard for me to speak specific to that, but looking at it in a more general text, I would say most people have heard of us before, not real sure that they're not thinking of that going into that.
Sure.
There's just so many other things, and it takes many times several hours before they even think about where are we going to rest, where are we going to eat, etc. So that's where we really need the support of the clinical staff, social workers, physicians, nurses, all just kind of coming through and making sure that our information is readily available to folks, and to make the process as seamless as we can.
You said a lot of people know about you. That's great. You're doing a great job. Give Wendy a big fat raise for that.
Yeah, well, she's pretty good at doing that for sure, and just continuing to work through that with her and her team for sure.
When you get a family that is not aware of you, but this blessing comes their way as they're told some bad news, and their kid might be weeks in recovery at the hospital, but hold on a second, you don't have to commute back and forth wherever you're coming from. What's it like? Can you think of a recent story of a family finding out that you are there for them and their life might not be completely uprooted as they would expect?
You're describing a situation that literally is all the time, right? It doesn't matter if somebody's coming from 30 minutes away or Maine, right? It all kind of plays out the same way, where once they kind of come to that realization, and you think about, maybe you've heard the physician say, you may be here a month, you may be here 6 weeks, etc. And it starts to set in of, how are we going to stay close? But at the same time, how are we going to be able to pay our bills at home? Because we got to stay somewhere, we got to eat food, all that kind of thing. So because of the generosity of our community, those things are just taken care of. So that amount of stress is lifted off pretty much immediately.
Yeah. Give me the origin story of the Ronald McDonald House. I know it did not start here in Toledo. Give me the background from the very beginning.
Absolutely. And what an appropriate time for us to talk about that. October 15th of this year will be our 50th anniversary globally. The first house was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it's a really cool story. Was actually a football player that played for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he had a 3-year-old daughter, Kim, with leukemia, diagnosed with leukemia. They found themselves sleeping in the chairs. They found themselves eating out of the vending machines. And as Fred talked to his teammates about it, they really started to have some conversations around, boy, wouldn't it be great if there was a house for all these families, because Fred and Fran weren't alone in the hospital. They saw there was people all over doing the same thing. So the Philadelphia Eagles actually started it. It was called Eagles Fly for Leukemia. They ran it there in Philadelphia, but they came across two things that were really profound. One is, this is a lot of work for us to maintain, this type of an organization. But second, and probably the biggest one, Fred himself said, there needs to be one of these next to every children's hospital in the world. So from there, it blossomed into Chicago and onward. Fast forwarding to 1982, right here in Toledo, Ohio, December 9th, 1982, we opened as the 44th house. There's 370 across 62 countries in the world today. So, we were in the beginning, and a lot of our story specifically came from very similar. We had a family, Gary and Tricia Yunker, who had 2 daughters with cystic fibrosis. They spent some time in Cleveland, where there was a Ronald McDonald House, and about 6 years on and off that they were, back and forth. And Gary, who still works in real estate today, and worked in that at the time, basically said, we got to get one of these right here in Toledo. Partnered up with a guy named Pierre Voti, Dr. Pierre Voti, who was one of their daughter's doctors in Cleveland, and a guy here locally, Don Michael, who owned some McDonald's restaurants and was tied in that way. And the three of them really got it started. Here we are today.
That was the first iteration of it, right? When did that one go till?
So we were in the first house from December 9th, 1982, and then we moved into the new one December 9th, 2015. So we were 33 years in the former house.
Are you allowed to tell me how many families are currently in the house?
Our occupancy is a little low right now, which is good, right?
Yes,
right.
yes.
That's always a good thing. But we have about 12 families with us today. But normally with 28 rooms, we're 20, 22, 24, even 20. We've maintained a wait list a couple of weeks this year for sure.
I know the answer is going to be different for every family because their stays are different, their treatments are different for the children. But what is a day in the life like for the parents of a kid that is getting treatment across the way?
Yeah, like you said, the treatment really depends. But in a normal circumstance, we don't see the families a lot. They get up early, they grab breakfast with us. Our staff do a great job of making sure they've got access to everything they need to get their day started. They spend a lot of time in the hospital. They spend a lot of time visiting with their child, visiting with the care team, and just being part of that treatment, which is really what we're all about, is to take that stress away so that they can focus on being part of that care team.
How many families get served over the course of a year, if you had to guesstimate?
Yeah, typically we'll serve between 500 and 600 as overnight guests, but we also serve day guests. Maybe those are families that live in Toledo and really don't need a place to stay overnight. They just need to jump in the shower and do some laundry and grab lunch. So we serve another 500 or 600 families, depending on the year, in that day guest program, and then beyond from there.
And all of that is at no cost to these families.
Incredible.
The last thing you want to have to worry about after you might be worrying about your deductible and out of pocket for medical expenses is for that shower, that laundry. It's at no cost. This is why we do the radiothon, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Give me the preview of that coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, let's do that. But, hitting on that last point you made, for sure. I mean, we are 100% donations driven. So our community has supported us for almost 42 years, making that just available to families. And then you talk about the radiothon, October 4th this year. We'll be on 105.5. We'll be on 93.5 as well, 2 Cumulus stations. Cumulus has been a great partner for us for a long, long time, and we're appreciative of that. We try to raise $40K in a day. I shouldn't say try.
We do.
We've done
that,
it.
right?
Yes, we've hit it 2 out of 2, and we're going to hit it again this year. Again, Wendy and her team are doing a great job of securing sponsorships as we go, just getting people involved. But, what we love about it, Eric, quite honestly, is, we love to raise, the $40K in a day. It's very, very helpful for those families. But additionally, you guys do such a great job for 13 hours of giving us a platform to have our volunteers talk and our staff talk and families talk and former families talk. It's just such an incredible blessing for us to be able to get that message out.
They're heartfelt stories. It's a little different from Children's Miracle Network, where often there is, unfortunately, a sad ending to these things. Not so much the case with the stories that we get to tell. If someone knows that our radiothon is coming and they're thinking, wow, I just want to hear my songs, why would you suggest that people listen to these stories from those volunteers and families?
One of the things that we talk a lot about is, almost everybody's heard of Ronald McDonald House Charities before, but a lot of times when we do speaking engagements, things like that, we say, who's heard of us before? All the hands go up. And then we say, who has a good idea of what it is that we do? And far fewer hands stay up in that case. So giving us that opportunity, give it to just listen in yourself. You're going to learn something more about what RMHC does and what we're doing today, what we're doing today versus what we've done, and where we're going in the future. So it's just a great opportunity to learn about us, because you got to think about it. Somebody, again, most of the times when we go speak somewhere, as an example, many people in the audience will always say, I was impacted. My family benefited from the services. So my point there is, you might hear something that really helps your family down the road. So our mission really is far-reaching, and we hope that listeners don't necessarily need to use our services. Although a lot of times it's very, very routine stuff that's happening, but we want people to know that we're there and what we're supposed to be doing and what we are doing right here in Northwest Ohio.
Something else that we're all too familiar with over the last handful of years are rising costs, and that must have hit you pretty hard because of food and daily household items. How other than seeking more donations and sponsorships? Good job, Wendy. How have you managed those challenges?
It's a little bit what do I want to say? It's a full-fledged approach, right? So there's lots of different things that are happening there. But again, our donors have really stepped up over the years, and Roundup inside of McDonald's now is a really, really great way for listeners to be able to get out and, hey, I'm going to McDonald's anyway. Let me round up. That's been a significant help because there are thousands and thousands of people going through McDonald's in our little listening area here, and folks being able to do that has been a big help. But again, our donors have just really stepped up because every bit that you just mentioned, rising costs in food and groceries, and we feel all that, right? Those are all real costs to us as well. So we appreciate the generosity of the community.
The rounding up, is it at all the McDonald's? Is it year round?
Yep. All the time.
Good.
Anytime you go to McDonald's, you can ask to round up. They may ask you. If they don't, just tell them you want to round up. They will allow you to do that for sure, and that money goes directly to the Ronald McDonald House right here in Northwest Ohio.
What is some of the other involvement that McDonald's, whether locally, regionally, nationally, has to help out the house or the houses across the country?
We do some different things here and there, but the big staple is I started to talk the story about the Philadelphia Eagles, and so how did it go from there to McDonald's? Well, when they made that switch and they said, that we really need to have one of these next to every children's hospital, they knew that they needed sponsors and they needed support. So a guy named Jimmy Murray, who was general manager at the time of the Eagles, had to go out and find support. He landed at this place called McDonald's, and it wasn't Ray Kroc yet. It was the local McDonald's owner-operator in Philadelphia, but he said, you know what? We have this product called the Shamrock Shake, and we'd like to give you the proceeds from that, but we want you to call it the Ronald McDonald House. So that's where the marriage started, and we are certainly glad today to still say that when they do the Shamrock Shakes, that supports us right here. But they do different drives, different things, but still the canisters are still there on the counters. You can still drop your change in. Roundup is a big way for folks to be able to connect with us in a growing way. We're seeing that expand. So French fries at some of the McDonald's, which is kind of a cool thing. So some of our McDonald's owner-operators, the folks that own it, actually donate money out of their pocket through their French fry sales as well.
I almost forgot about it. I don't know. I'm so glad that it struck me, but I'll throw at you what I'm thinking. First up, if people want to get involved right now, if they want to donate, if they're not going to be around on October 4th, whatever the reason, how might they do that?
The easiest way is our website, rmhctoledo.org. You can go on there. There's lots of great information. You'll see radiothon on there. You'll see other things. You'll see a donate button. You'll see information about being able to volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers. We're a very small staffed organization. Still very dependent on volunteers. So I would highly encourage people to get on our website.
You love to have groups come in and cook in the kitchen, team building type things. Talk about that.
Yeah. So almost every night, pretty much every night, we have groups that come in and cook. Whether those folks that work together or go to church together, families, whatever. It's a great way for 4 to 6-ish people to come in and prepare a meal. And I will tell you, it is the family's number one favorite thing is having home cooked meals while they're staying at the Ronald McDonald House.
What, off the top of your head, if you know, what numbers will I and we be throwing out day of? Will there be a text code so we can get to 40K in the day?
You know what? I don't have that on me,
okay.
Eric. Yeah.
We'll do it October 4th.
Let's do it October 4th, and maybe leading up to it. We'll see.
What I had thought about, and I'm glad I didn't forget is, and it's still so wild to me that pull tabs are so darn important to what you do. Explain that.
Yeah, so the little tabs on top of your pop can or whatever can, I guess, cat food cans, etc. But that little aluminum tab, we collect those. We recycle them, obviously. And last year, most years, we collect between, say, 45 and 50 million tabs. So lots and lots of support from the community, but we recycle those, and we use the funds directly raised from that to offset our pantry cost. So when we talk about food increase costs, etc., more and more pull tabs really helps us offset that cost.
How does that recycling relationship work? Like, so if I knew that I could take 50 million pull tabs and make some money, I mean,
yeah, right. Good luck.
Yeah.
So we've got a big old dumpster, and our friends over at OmniSource are just a great partner. And what they do is literally park that dumpster on there. When it's full, we call them. They pick it up. They send the check in the mail for the aluminum that's inside of that. And if you see our dumpster, it's really impressive. It's a big dumpster. Doesn't sound very exciting till you see it. full of these tabs, and we'll empty it 8 or 10 times a year.
I've never seen it. I would like to see it. I know
We're going to do it on the 4th.
Yeah, and I know we're at the house this year. We're at the house.
Yeah.
So, have you lined up? I know you have probably lined up some families. Any ones that you are excited to have me talk to? Wendy? Nobody? All of them?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them, yeah.
They're all good people. I love listening to the stories. Yeah. Chad, kind of Wendy.
Kind of.
Ronald McDonald House here in Toledo. One last thing, the website people might want to check out one more time.
rmhctoledo.org.
And we'll see you October 4th.
Thank you, sir.